The wooden legs of the chair screamed across the marble floor. One second, I was lowering myself beside my father's wheelchair at the family table. The next second, there was nothing beneath me. My hips slammed into the cold ballroom floor so hard the breath left my body. A champagne flute shattered beside my hand. Glass cut into my palm. 200 wedding guests stopped talking at the exact same time. My sister stood over me in her white silk gown, still gripping the chair she had yanked away. "You don't belong at the family table," she said. Then my father raised his shaking left hand from his wheelchair. 3 hard knocks hit the metal armrest. Knock, 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 knock. My new brother-in-law stood up so fast his chair tipped backward. His face had gone pale under the crystal chandeliers. He looked at my sister and said, "Lauren, do you really want me to tell everyone where the wedding money came from?" My sister froze. And that was the moment her perfect wedding became the night everyone finally heard my father's voice. My name is Emily Carter. I am 38 years old, and for most of my adult life, I believed being the responsible daughter meant never letting the family fall apart. I answered the calls, I handled the appointments, I paid the deposits, I fixed the paperwork. I swallowed the insults because my mother said, "You know how Lauren is." I forgave things nobody had apologized for because my father needed peace. And after his stroke, I convinced myself that keeping the peace mattered more than proving I was right. I was wrong. Peace built on silence is not peace. It is a cage, and my sister had spent months building one around me. My father, Daniel Carter, had his stroke on a Tuesday morning in late February. Nothing about that morning seemed special at first. He had been in the kitchen of my parents' house in Westerville, Ohio, making coffee the way he always did. Too strong, too hot, and in the same chipped blue mug he refused to throw away. My mother, Patricia, later told me he had been complaining about the local news when his words suddenly blurred together. Then the mug slipped from his hand. By the time the ambulance arrived, Dad could not move the right side of his body. By the time I reached the hospital, my mother was standing in the hallway holding her purse with both hands like it was the only object keeping her upright. Lauren was not there. She was at a bridal salon in Columbus. She texted me a heart emoji and wrote, "Tell me if it's serious. I'm in the middle of my second fitting." That was my sister. Not evil in the obvious way. Not cruel every second of the day. Lauren was softer than that, which made her more dangerous. She cried easily. She hugged people in photographs. She knew how to make selfishness sound like vulnerability. She knew exactly when to say, "I'm overwhelmed," so other people would stop asking what she had done. She was 32, 6 years younger than me, and she had always been the child my parents protected from consequences. If Lauren forgot to pay a bill, Mom said she had a lot on her mind. If Lauren quit a job, Dad said she deserved a place where people appreciated her. If Lauren borrowed money and did not repay it, everyone quietly agreed not to embarrass her. But if I asked for help, I was being dramatic. If I said I was tired, I was making everything about me. If I said no, I was selfish. My father used to see it more clearly than my mother did. Not always, not enough, but sometimes. When I was 26, and Lauren borrowed my car for a weekend trip and brought it back with a dent in the bumper, Mom told me not to ruin family dinner over a mistake. Dad walked outside afterward and slipped $200 into my coat pocket. "She should have told you," he said. "Then why didn't you make her say it?" He looked toward the house. "Your mother doesn't want to fight." That was the Carter family rule. No fight was worse than a lie. At least, until the lie became big enough to swallow my father's future. Dad survived the stroke, but he came home as a different version of himself. Not less intelligent. That is what people misunderstand. He was still in there. Still stubborn. Still funny. Still sarcastic in the way only a man who had repaired tractors for 30 years could be sarcastic. But his speech was damaged. Words came out broken, slow, and sometimes not at all. His right hand curled uselessly in his lap. His right leg needed careful positioning on the wheelchair footrest. He needed help transferring from the chair to the bed. He needed a shower bench, grab bars, medication tracking, therapy scheduling, and someone who could read an insurance denial letter without bursting into tears. That someone was me. Before the stroke, I worked as the operations director for a rehabilitation center affiliated with a regional hospital network. I knew medical billing codes. I knew how vendors hid unnecessary charges inside vague wording. I knew which equipment mattered and which expensive accessories looked impressive but helped no one. I also knew how vulnerable a patient becomes the moment other people decide their silence means consent. That was why I pushed for Dad to have a communication tablet. A speech-language pathologist named Marisol helped us customize it. Dad learned to use his left hand to tap simple words, short phrases, and yes or no buttons. The process was slow, frustrating, sometimes painful to watch, but Dad worked. Every afternoon, he sat near the window in the therapy room and practiced until sweat shone along his forehead. 2 taps meant yes. 3 knocks meant no. 1 slow tap meant he wanted his tablet. He invented the 3 knocks himself. He said through the tablet, "Hard to ignore." He was right. Unless you were my mother, or Lauren, they ignored him constantly. At first, I thought it was grief. People do strange things when someone they love becomes disabled. They talk too loudly. They answer questions that were not asked of them. They confuse physical weakness with mental absence. But over time, I realized my mother and Lauren were not confused. They were comfortable. Dad's silence had made life easier for them. He could not interrupt when Mom told relatives he didn't understand the accounts anymore. He could not correct Lauren when she said he had asked her to handle the family money. He could not explain that he did not want his therapy appointment rescheduled because Lauren had a dress fitting. And when he knocked no, my mother simply sighed and said, "He's tired." That became her explanation for everything. Dad was tired. Dad was confused. Dad did not mean that. Dad would want the family to be happy. The first crack appeared at a speech therapy appointment 6 weeks before Lauren's wedding. The waiting room smelled like disinfectant, stale coffee, and the faint rubber odor of wheelchair tires. A television in the corner played a morning talk show nobody was watching. I was kneeling in front of Dad's chair, adjusting the footrest under his right shoe. "You okay?" I asked. He tapped twice. "Yes." I checked the side pocket of his chair. Water bottle, medication list, backup communication board, blue stylus. Everything was there. Lauren burst through the glass doors 20 minutes late. She wore white jeans, wedge sandals, and a pale pink blouse that still had the boutique tag hanging from one sleeve. Her engagement ring flashed under the fluorescent lights. "Daddy?" she said. She leaned down, kissed his cheek, and snapped a photo before he could even lift his hand. Then she checked the picture. "Cute," she whispered to herself. Dad reached toward the tablet. Lauren missed it completely. "I can't stay," she announced. "Final dress fitting, Mason's mom is coming, and she is intense about alterations." My mother patted Lauren's arm. "You go, sweetheart. This is your season. This is your season." Dad's recovery had appointments, bills, exhaustion, pain, and humiliation. Lauren's wedding had a season. Mom turned to me after Lauren left. "You should try being happier for your sister." I didn't say anything. "You didn't have to." I stared at her. Dad knocked once, slowly. Tablet. I handed him the device. He tapped. Therapy. Mom smiled at him like he had said something adorable. "Yes, honey, therapy, we know." He looked at me. The frustration in his eyes was so sharp I had to look away. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with Dad's care binder open in front of me. My apartment was small but quiet. I had rented it 3 months earlier after Mom accused me of hovering when I asked why Dad's home aid schedule kept changing without notice. It was a 1-bedroom unit on the 2nd floor of an old brick building near a coffee shop and a laundromat. The kitchen floor slanted slightly, the heater clicked all night in winter, the bathroom sink dripped if you did not turn the handle just right. But the lease had my name on it. That mattered more than I expected. After years of being the daughter who came running, I needed one place where the family could not simply walk in and demand more. I opened Dad's most recent bank statement. My father had asked me before the stroke to keep digital copies of his business and personal records. Not because he expected Lauren to steal from him, because Dad trusted organized people, and I was organized. My eyes stopped on a reimbursement check issued to Lauren. Memo: Accessibility Equipment Reimbursement. Amount: $4,850. I frowned. That did not make sense. I had paid the deposit for Dad's bathroom remodel myself. The contractor had widened the doorway, installed grab bars, lowered a section of counter, and added a roll-in shower bench. Insurance reimbursed 80% of the approved modifications. Dad had reimbursed me for the deposit with a check he signed before his hand fully weakened. Lauren had not paid anything. Below that entry sat another charge: $3,200. Memo: Mobility support. The merchant code looked wrong. Medical supply vendors had patterns, pharmacies had patterns, home modification contractors had patterns. This one did not. I took a picture of the statement. Then another. Then I printed the page, slid it into a plastic sleeve, and wrote the date on a yellow sticky note. For years, my family had trained me to defend myself emotionally. Now I was learning to defend myself on paper. The next afternoon, I drove to my parents' house. The house sat on a quiet street, lined with maples, the kind of suburb where everyone put pumpkins on their porches in October and pretended not to notice whose adult children moved back home. I still knew the security code then. Inside, Dad was near the living room window, watching baseball with closed captions on. Mom was folding towels. Lauren sat cross-legged on the couch with her laptop open, scrolling through what looked like floral arrangements. I placed the invoice on the coffee table. "Lauren, why did Dad's account reimburse you for the bathroom equipment?" She did not look up. "What? I paid that deposit. Insurance reimbursed the rest. Why were you paid?" Mom sighed immediately. That sigh was always the opening act. "Emily, can we please not do this today?" "I'm asking a question." Lauren closed her laptop slowly. "Dad asked me to organize some of the expenses." "That still does not explain why money went to you for something you didn't pay. It was all part of the same care budget." "No, it wasn't." I placed the second statement beside the first. "And what is this $3,200 charge?" Lauren glanced at it, then looked away too quickly. "Mobility support." "What kind?" "Do you want me to list every errand I run?" "Yes." Her face hardened. Mom stood up. "You are not going to interrogate your sister in this house. I'm asking about Dad's money. Your father trusts Lauren." I looked at Dad. His eyes were fixed on the documents. His left hand moved. Knock. 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 3 hard knocks against the wooden side table. Number. Lauren's lips pressed together. Mom ignored it. "See?" I said quietly. "He is answering." Mom lifted her chin. "He is upset because you are upsetting him." That sentence stayed with me. It was the beginning of their favorite trick. Every time Dad objected, they blamed me for making him uncomfortable. Every time I asked a question, they called it pressure. Every time the truth tried to enter the room, they accused me of creating conflict. I wrote down the date, the time, and Lauren's exact words in my notebook before I left. That night, the answer to the $3,200 charge appeared on my laptop screen. The merchant code belonged to the Sterling House Hotel, a luxury venue in downtown Columbus. The same hotel where Lauren and Mason's wedding reception would be held. The charge was not mobility support. It was a wedding deposit. I sat completely still. Outside, a siren passed somewhere in the distance. My refrigerator hummed. The apartment light flickered once over the table. I thought about Dad in his wheelchair, his right hand curled, his speech trapped, his savings meant for therapy, aids, equipment, transportation, and future care. Then I thought about Lauren's wedding website. The soft focus engagement photos. The paragraph about 2 families becoming one. The countdown clock. the registry with imported cookware and cash honeymoon options. I did not call her. That mattered. I wanted to. I wanted to hear her panic. I wanted to ask whether the champagne tower counted as mobility support too. But people like Lauren live for emotional reactions. They use your anger as proof that they were right about you. So I wrote an email. Lauren, please send original receipts for the following 3 transactions by Friday: the accessibility reimbursement, the mobility support charge, and any care-related withdrawals submitted under your name since April. Thank you, Emily. I kept it cold, clean, impossible to twist. She called 3 minutes later. Why are you suddenly auditing me? No hello? Don't play games. I asked for receipts. I am planning a wedding, Emily. I don't have time for this. Then forward the receipts when you do. Dad wanted me to handle it. Put that in writing. There was a pause. In the background, Mom said, "Tell her to stop harassing you." Lauren's voice sharpened. "You are jealous. Everyone sees it." Of what? Of me. Of Mason. Of the wedding. Of the fact that I'm building a life while you're still acting like Dad's nurse. I looked around my small apartment. The thrift store table, the stack of medical folders, the promotion letter from work I still had not signed because Dad needed me available. Maybe the insult should have hurt. Instead, it clarified something. Lauren did not see caregiving as love. She saw it as failure. I said, "Send the receipts." Then I hung up. The retaliation arrived the next morning in the family group chat. Lauren posted at 6:53 a.m. I have tried to keep this private because I don't want drama before the wedding, but Emily has been questioning me about Dad's money while hiding the fact that she reimbursed herself thousands of dollars from his account. I'm heartbroken. I don't know what else she has taken. Please pray for our family. Below it, she attached a cropped screenshot. It showed a transfer from Dad's account to mine. $6,700. No memo line, no date context, no contractor invoice. Just the amount. My cousin Heather replied first. What? Aunt Linda wrote, "Emily, please explain this." Mom wrote, "You need to return that money and apologize to Lauren. Your father cannot handle more stress." I stared at the screen until my fingers went numb. This was how a lie becomes a cage. You do not need to prove everything. You only need to make people suspicious enough that the truth sounds like an excuse. Old Emily would have written a desperate explanation. Old Emily would have reminded them that I had stayed at the hospital for 11 nights. Old Emily would have asked why nobody questioned Lauren's missing receipts. Instead, I opened the folder on my computer. I uploaded the full bank statement, the contractor invoice, the insurance approval, Dad's original text from before his speech declined, "Pay the ramp deposit, I'll reimburse once the check clears, keep copies." I sent all of it to the group chat. Then I wrote, "Complete record attached." Nobody answered. For 26 minutes, nobody said a word. Then Aunt Nancy wrote privately, "I believe you." That was all. 3 words. I sat at my kitchen table and cried for 10 minutes. Not because everyone else stayed silent, because one person didn't. 3 days later, my code stopped working at my parents' house. I had gone there to drop off Dad's medication refill. It was hot outside, the kind of sticky heat that makes the air feel heavy. I stood on the porch, punched in the numbers, and waited. Red light. I tried again. Red. Inside, I could hear a daytime game show, and my mother laughing. I called her. No answer. I opened the caregiver scheduling app. Access denied. A text from Lauren appeared. "For Dad's emotional safety, Mom and I decided it's best that you take space from the house. Your financial pressure is not healthy for him." I read the message twice, then a third time. Dad's medication was still in my purse. My childhood keychain was still in my hand. The porch swing moved slightly in the humid breeze. I did not knock. I did not shout. I took screenshots of the red keypad, the app error, and the text. Then I called the dedicated landline beside Dad's bed. He answered after 2 rings. A raspy breath came through the receiver. "Hey, Dad," I said lightly. Schedule mix-up today. I'll see you Friday at therapy, okay? 2 taps. Yes. Then, after a pause, knock, knock, knock. No. I closed my eyes. I know, I whispered. I know. That night, I did something I should have done months earlier. I signed the promotion letter from work. My hospital had offered me the full operations manager role for the rehab wing. I had delayed it because the schedule would be less flexible, and I thought Dad needed me more than I needed advancement. But standing outside a locked door with medication in my purse, I understood the truth. My family was not asking me to care for Dad. They were demanding that I remain available while they controlled the story. So I accepted the job. Then I opened a new bank account at a different institution. I locked my credit. I changed passwords. I set every bill in my own name to autopay. I moved my personal documents out of the box in my parents' basement and into a safe deposit box. For the first time in my life, I protected myself before asking permission. The following week, Marisol called me. "Can you come to your father's Friday session?" she asked. "Is something wrong?" There was a pause. "He has been trying to communicate something consistently. I think you should be there." That sentence stayed in my chest the entire drive. The therapy room was bright, with wide windows overlooking a small courtyard where patients practiced walking along a paved path. Dad sat near the window, his wheelchair tray locked in place. His communication tablet rested in front of him. Marisol began with basic checks. Month, year, home address, my name. Lauren's name, his old business name. Dad answered each correctly. Then Marisol said, "Daniel, do you want Lauren to continue handling your money?" Dad's hand froze. His jaw tightened. Knock. 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 The sound was harder than usual. Then he reached for the tablet. He tapped slowly. Private meeting. Marisol looked at me. I felt something shift inside the room. Dad did not need me to rescue him. He needed people to stop blocking the exit. 2 weeks before the wedding, a neutral advocate met with Dad in a private conference room at the therapy center. I waited outside. Aunt Nancy sat beside me with a paper cup of coffee she never drank. Mom thought Dad was at an ordinary speech session. Lauren was at a bridal makeup trial. For once, nobody was speaking over him. When the door opened, Dad looked exhausted but awake in a way I had not seen in months. The advocate confirmed that he understood his accounts. He confirmed he had authorized medical bills and accessibility expenses only. He confirmed he had never agreed to pay for the Sterling House Hotel, Lauren's wedding dress, floral deposits, or honeymoon expenses. Then the worst part came. Dad had typed out that Lauren once asked him to read her a one-time authorization code from his phone. She told him it was for the wheelchair ramp payment. That code had actually allowed her to approve an outside payee. Her. I had to sit down. Aunt Nancy whispered, "Dear God." Dad stared at the table. He was not confused. He was ashamed. That nearly broke me. My father had been manipulated while trapped in a body that made it difficult to protest. And the person who did it was his own daughter. The day the financial authority was revoked, my mother left me a voicemail. I stood in my kitchen while her voice filled the room. "Emily, you have gone too far. Your sister is days away from her wedding. She has been under impossible stress. Whatever money she used, she planned to pay back. You know Lauren, she gets overwhelmed. You need to call those people and fix this before you destroy the family." I replayed the message. Whatever money she used, she planned to pay back. Mom knew. Maybe not the full amount. Maybe not the method. But she knew enough. Enough to change the locks. Enough to accuse me. Enough to protect Lauren while Dad's care money was being drained. I saved the voicemail, not because I wanted to destroy my mother, because I had finally learned that love without records can be rewritten by the loudest liar in the room. 4 days before the wedding, Mason called me. I was getting ready for work, buttoning a gray blouse in front of the bathroom mirror, when his name appeared on my phone. Mason rarely called me. He preferred communicating through Lauren, which he described as keeping things simple. Emily, he said. Why is your father's name appearing in a billing dispute with the hotel? I stopped buttoning. You should ask Lauren. I am asking you. Then ask yourself why a hotel payment is connected to a man recovering from a stroke. He exhaled sharply. Look, I don't know what kind of family fight this is, but can it wait until after Saturday? That told me who he was. Not innocent. Not completely. He did not want the truth. He wanted the party. Mason, I said, check your vendor portal. Then ask your bride where the money came from. I ended the call. At lunchtime, he texted me a screenshot. The final payment for the ballroom showed as reversed. The outstanding balance was enormous. The original account holder attached to the payment was Daniel Carter. Mason wrote, Lauren says your dad gave it to us as a wedding gift. Is that true? I replied, ask him directly. Ask him directly. In front of someone who will let him answer. The 3 typing dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, Mason wrote, she told me he didn't understand money anymore. I stared at those words for a long time. That was the lie beneath every other lie. Dad did not understand. Dad was tired. Dad would have wanted it. Dad cannot speak, so we will speak for him. The wedding went forward anyway. Of course it did. People like Lauren do not cancel the performance just because the stage is collapsing. They smile brighter. The ceremony took place in a glass chapel attached to the hotel. White roses climbed the aisle. Candles flickered in clear cylinders. A harpist played something soft and expensive. Dad was wheeled down the aisle by Mom, his tuxedo slightly crooked at the shoulder because nobody had adjusted it properly. I stood to fix it. Mom whispered, do not start. So I sat down. Aunt Nancy sat beside me. She had Dad's backup communication board in her purse. I don't trust anyone, she whispered. Good, I said. Lauren walked down the aisle like a woman starring in a movie about herself. Her gown had long sleeves, tiny pearl buttons, and a train that required 2 bridesmaids to arrange. She cried at all the right moments. When she reached Dad, she leaned down and kissed his cheek for the photographer. Dad raised his hand toward the tablet mounted on his chair. Mom gently pushed his hand down. The photographer snapped the picture. The guests sighed. I felt sick. The reception upstairs was worse. The Sterling House ballroom had marble floors, gold walls, crystal chandeliers, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Columbus. The tables were covered in ivory linens. The centerpieces were so large guests had to lean around them to speak. Champagne poured. A string quartet played. A videographer floated between tables capturing laughter, hugs, fake warmth. Everything looked beautiful. That was the most obscene part. The theft had taste. It had lighting. It had calligraphy. It had imported roses. I found my name on the seating chart near the bar. Emily Carter, table 22. Next to the kitchen doors. The family table was at the front, beside the dance floor. Dad sat there in his wheelchair, his tablet on the table but angled slightly away from him. Lauren had placed Mason on one side and Mom on the other. The empty chair beside Dad had no place card. I started walking toward table 22. Then Dad's hand struck the armrest. Knock, knock, knock. The sound cut through the string music. People turned. He pointed with his left hand toward the empty chair beside him. Aunt Nancy stood. She sits there, she said. Mom stiffened. Not now, Nancy. Not now, Nancy. Dad knocked again. 3 times. The venue coordinator, a young woman with a headset and the expression of someone trained to recognize disaster before it spreads, quickly brought a white cushioned chair and placed it beside Dad's wheelchair. Lauren saw it from across the room. Her smile vanished. She marched toward us, the train of her gown whispering angrily across the marble. What are you doing? I kept my voice calm. Sitting with Dad. No, you're sitting at your assigned table. Dad asked me to sit here. He doesn't know what he's asking. Dad knocked. Mom whispered, Daniel, stop. Aunt Nancy said, "Do not tell him to stop answering." Lauren leaned close enough that I could smell her perfume. "This is my wedding. For once, can you not make everything about yourself?" Nearby guests began watching. Mason stood by the stage, staring at his phone. His jaw was tight. I looked at the chair, then at Dad, then I lowered myself. That was when Lauren grabbed the back of the chair and yanked it away. The legs shrieked. My body dropped. My hip hit the marble. My elbow cracked against the floor. My right hand came down on shattered glass. Pain flashed white. Someone screamed. The music stopped. For 1 second, I could not breathe. Then I heard Lauren's voice above me. "You don't belong at the family table." Every eye in the ballroom turned toward us. Every conversation died. The videographer was still filming. Several guests already had phones raised. My father's hand lifted. Knock, knock, knock. Then again. Knock, knock. Then knock. Not tired. Not confused. Furious. Mason stepped forward. His face looked gray. "That is enough." Lauren turned toward him. "Mason, don't." He looked at her. "Do you really want me to tell everyone the truth?" The panic on her face was instant. She knew he had seen enough. I stayed on the floor, pressing a linen napkin against my bleeding palm. A waiter crouched beside me, whispering, "Ma'am, don't move too fast." I did not move. I watched Dad. Aunt Nancy grabbed his tablet and placed it directly in his lap. Lauren lunged toward it. "Don't you dare." A security guard stepped between her and the wheelchair. That was the first moment the room understood this was not family drama. It was danger. Mason turned to Dad. "Mr. Carter," he said, voice shaking, "did you agree to pay for this wedding?" Dad looked at him. Then he tapped the tablet. The robotic voice filled the silent ballroom. "No." Lauren laughed once. A terrible, broken sound. "He doesn't understand the question." Dad tapped again. "I understand." Mom stepped forward. "He is overwhelmed." Aunt Nancy snapped. "He is answering." Lauren pointed at me. "She coached him. She has been coaching him for weeks because she wants to ruin my wedding." I lifted my injured hand slightly. I am on the floor, bleeding, and I have not touched his tablet. Dad continued tapping. Slowly, carefully. The entire ballroom waited. The robotic voice spoke again. "Lauren used my money." No one breathed. That was what silence sounds like when it changes sides. Mason looked at Lauren. The final payment bounced. "Mason," she whispered, "not here. You told me it was a gift." It was. He just said no. He would have given it to me eventually. The words came out too loud, too fast, too honest. Mom grabbed Lauren's arm. "Stop talking." But Lauren jerked away. "No, I am tired of her acting like a martyr. Dad is my father too. That money was going to be ours anyway someday. She wants to waste it on nurses, therapy, and those depressing medical vans." Someone gasped. A bridesmaid covered her mouth. Mason stared at his bride like he had just watched a stranger remove her mask. "He is alive," he said. Lauren's lips trembled. "You know what I mean." "I don't think I did until now." The venue manager approached quietly. "Mrs. Vale, we need to discuss the outstanding balance." Lauren turned on me. "Pay it." Even lying on the floor, I almost laughed. "Excuse me? You caused this. Pay the hotel so we can handle it privately." My hand throbbed. My hip burned. My father sat 3 feet away, breathing hard, his tablet still glowing in his lap. I looked at Lauren and said, "Dad's medical care is not your wedding fund." Mason removed his wedding ring, slowly, as if his fingers were heavier than the metal. "I'm leaving." Lauren stared at him. "You can't leave me at my reception. You used a disabled man's care money to pay for a ballroom. He is my father." "That makes it worse." Then he walked out. The string quartet never started playing again. Security escorted Lauren through a side exit after she tried to grab Dad's tablet a second time. She screamed my name all the way down the hall. By midnight, videos were online. By morning, the family group chat had exploded. People who had ignored my evidence suddenly wanted to know what really happened. Aunt Linda wrote, "We didn't realize it was that serious." My cousin Heather wrote, "Lauren made it sound like you were stealing from your dad." Another cousin sent, "I'm sorry I believed her." Some apologies were real. Most were self-protection, wearing polite clothes. Mom called 17 times. I did not answer. I spent the morning in urgent care, while a nurse cleaned the glass from my palm. She asked, gently, "Do you feel safe going home?" For the first time in a long time, I said yes. Because home was not my parents' house anymore. Home was the apartment with the crooked floors and the door nobody else could unlock. What followed was not cinematic. No one confessed dramatically over dinner. No police kicked in doors. No judge slammed a gavel while the family gasped. Real consequences are slower. They arrive through phone calls, frozen accounts, emails, invoices, interviews, and people finally having to answer questions they thought they could avoid. The financial review showed that Lauren had taken far more than the wedding deposit. Month by month, she had moved money out of Dad's care account. Some of it went to wedding vendors, some to credit cards, some to boutique clothing stores, some to weekend trips she had posted online with captions like, "Protecting my peace," "Blessed beyond measure," "Soft life era." The worst part was not the spending. It was the framing. Several transfers had been labeled as reimbursements to me. Lauren had not only stolen, she had prepared evidence to blame me if anyone noticed. The device logs proved the transfers came from her laptop. The timestamps showed many happened while I was at work. My hospital badge records placed me inside the rehab center during withdrawals she had tried to connect to my name. For months, she had been building a version of the story where I was the thief. And my mother had helped hold the door open. Dad moved out of the family house 3 weeks after the wedding. The transition was quiet. No dramatic goodbye, no shouting. A transport service took him to a supported living apartment near the therapy center. It had wide windows, accessible bathroom fixtures, staff trained in communication devices, and a garden path where residents could sit outside without being forgotten. I helped arrange his ferns on the windowsill. Aunt Nancy brought a framed photograph of him standing beside his old repair truck. Dad tapped his tablet. "Good room." I smiled. "Better than Mom's living room?" He tapped. No comment. Then he looked pleased with himself. That was the most Dad thing he had done in months. Mom could visit, but she no longer controlled his money or his schedule. Most importantly, she no longer controlled his voice. The tablet stayed mounted beside him, always within reach. Nobody was allowed to move it for photographs. Lauren tried to save herself online. She posted a tearful statement accusing me of weaponizing our father's illness and destroying a marriage out of jealousy. But wedding guests uploaded the unedited footage underneath. The chair being pulled, Dad knocking. The tablet saying no. Lauren saying early inheritance. Lauren demanding I pay the hotel. There are lies that cannot survive good camera angles. Mason sent me an envelope 2 months later. Inside were printed hotel emails, billing screenshots, and a short handwritten note. I should have asked harder questions. I wanted the day to be beautiful more than I wanted the truth. "I'm sorry." I threw away the note. I kept the documents. Lauren's case moved forward. I will not turn this into a courtroom speech because that was never the point of my story. But she eventually accepted consequences for taking money that was not hers and for what she did to me at the reception. The day she stood in court, she looked smaller. No extensions. No lashes. No white dress. Just a gray blazer, shaking hands, and eyes that still searched the room for someone else to blame. Dad gave a statement through his tablet. I read the first part for him because he asked me to. He did not focus on the money. He focused on what it felt like to be treated as if his silence meant permission. He said his daughter had stolen more than funds. She had stolen his no. At the end, Dad pressed one button himself. The robotic voice said, "Emily told the truth." That was enough for me. Outside the courthouse, Mom cornered me near the steps. She looked older than I remembered. Her makeup had settled into lines around her mouth. Her purse was clutched against her chest. "You could ask for leniency," she said. I told the truth. "She is your sister." "So am I." "That is not the same." I looked at her. There it was. The sentence my childhood had been built around. Lauren's pain counted differently. Lauren's future mattered more. Lauren's mistakes needed cushions. Mine needed correction. Mom's eyes filled with tears, but I could no longer tell which tears were grief and which were strategy. "This family is broken," she whispered. "No," I said. "This family was broken. Now everyone can see the cracks." Her face hardened. "We need you to come home and help fix this." A year earlier, those words would have worked. I would have heard them as proof that I mattered. I would have gone back to the house, handled the bills, managed Dad's move, comforted Mom, found a way to soften Lauren's consequences. I would have called it love. Now I understood what it really was. A job nobody paid me for. "No," I said. Mom blinked. "I'm your mother, and I'm not your cleanup crew anymore." Then I walked away. 1 year has passed since the wedding. The scar on my palm is thin but visible. My hip still aches when it rains, and Dad jokes through his tablet that we are now weather twins. I accepted the full-time promotion at the hospital. I also started a small consulting service for families navigating stroke recovery, communication access, and care organization. I do not promise peace. I promise records. Clear roles. Independent oversight. A communication plan that does not allow the loudest relative to become the patient's voice. I tell every client the same thing. If someone cannot speak easily, that does not mean they have nothing to say. Dad comes to my apartment for dinner twice a month. A transport service brings him. Aunt Nancy usually comes too, carrying dessert from a bakery she insists is better than anything homemade. We sit at my second-hand dining table. No chandeliers. No champagne tower. No seating chart. No one assigned near the kitchen doors. Just roasted vegetables, soup, cheap candles, and Dad's tablet within reach. One Friday night, after dinner, Dad looked around my apartment. His eyes moved from Aunt Nancy to me, then to the small vase of grocery store flowers on the table. He tapped his screen carefully. The robotic voice said, "This is family." I had to turn toward the sink so he would not see me cry. For years, I thought being strong meant absorbing pain quietly, being the one who understood, the one who forgave, the one who showed up even when nobody showed up for her. But strength is not measured by how much disrespect you can survive. Strength is the moment you stop calling disrespect love. Lauren thought pulling my chair away would prove I did not belong at the family table. Instead, it showed everyone what that table had cost me. My peace, my reputation, my father's safety, my belief that keeping the family together was worth losing myself. I do not hate my sister. Hate takes too much energy, but I will never again confuse blood with trust. I will never again let my mother's panic become my assignment, and I will never again sit at a table where my place depends on how much I am willing to sacrifice. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is not shouting. It is not ruining someone back. It is building a life so protected, so peaceful, and so clearly yours that the people who used to benefit from your silence can no longer reach you. So tell me honestly, if your family tried to make you look like the villain while using a vulnerable parent for money, would you still try to keep the peace, or would you let the whole table hear the truth?